Thanks so much for clicking on my video.
What you doing?
Let me introduce myself.
What you doing?
I'm
What you doing?
Gassy Pants. Mariam. I'm Mariam. I'm your typical mom of four living in American suburbia. You know, putting my toddler to sleep.
Dad, getting!
Short order cooking my fifth graders' third lunch.
When's dinner?
I'm done!
Rescuing underpants from a horrific and early death. Did any part of you leave that bathroom washed?
Mom, can we go dumpster diving at Sephora?
Keeping my 9-year-old 9 years old.
And I found these things in your closet. Can I have them?
And making up songs with the kids at dinner time about their teachers' names.
Mikhail, barfs in a pail.
Mikhail, flails like a whale.
Mikhail, barfs on a whale, teaches K through 4 even though he went to Yale.
Witter, cries like a quitter.
Witter, eats cat litter.
Witter, takes too long on the show. One day, I heard my kids mention the amount of people that subscribe to a YouTube channel that they watch that's basically animated stories about the YouTuber's life. And I thought, well, I'm pretty good at going on about myself. And if that's all it takes to make a living these days, then let the self-exploitation begin. You see, as a first-generation American minority, my life is a goldmine of racial microaggressions, cultural appropriation, gaslighting, and all the other buzzworthy pretend crimes we're shaming each other for these days. So let's get into it. My earliest memories aren't even of America, actually. They're from my first trip to Pakistan, which is where my parents are from and where my grandparents and a lot of my aunts and uncles still lived in the early 80s. And as far as origin stories go, there really is no being Mariam in America without Mariam going to Pakistan. Take, for example, my very first memory. I was running through a beautiful grassy field, not a care in the world, my twin brother, a built-in butt buddy for life, running beside me as we chased fluffy, adorable bunnies. The classic all-white and extra cuddly-looking kind, who, of course, wanted nothing more in life than the love of toddlers. Toddlers with little to no compassion for other living things. A clear intent to torture gleaming in their eyes, and only 2 modes of metacarpal capability, death grip and hurl far enough away to break. The day was warm and sunny and breezy, just the right weather to showcase the frill and bounce of my handmade cotton frock and my brother's perfect South Asian hair. What could mar such a wonderful moment? A booger bubble. That's what. Suddenly, a thin green film began emanating from my nose. It stopped me dead in my tracks. I felt myself go cross-eyed, focusing with first-time wonder on the translucent green sphere growing on my face. Is this another awesome thing that humans can do? My 18-month-old brain wondered. Excited at the prospect of a lifetime of bubbling out the nose. How big could they get? Could they lift me off the ground like a nasal hot air balloon? I turned to my twin to share this gem of a discovery. But instead of rejoicing, his face contorted in disgust, and the shriek that followed called everyone's attention to my booger-bubbled face. My toothy aunts all laughed at me with big, wide-open, toothy mouths, and the bunnies all ran away, and I stood there snot-faced and getting laughed at by geriatric elders I wasn't allowed to disrespect. Until my mom came and cleaned me up. I felt gross and different, and even though it wasn't my fault, I somehow felt responsible, and certain that I was looking at a future full of the joke being on me. It wasn't a nose-bubbling superpower I discovered that day. Instead, it was my first life lesson in humiliation and the harsh truth that it often rears its ugly head right in the middle of the most beautiful of moments. From that day on, I suspected life would come with challenges. There would indeed be more moments of bunny chasing and perfect frocks, but I had a feeling they'd be regularly tempered by soul-crushing obstacles and healthy doses of humiliation. I came home from Pakistan chock full of third world culture churning in my head that was sure only to terrify early 80s Houstonites. Like the time I found myself alone in a back alley on the Muslim holiday of Eid al Adha, staring at a severed goat's head sitting on a pile of rocks. Did I have to be seeing this all by myself? Who decided it was a good idea to leave a toddler alone in a back alley in Pakistan to experience this trauma alone? Imagine trying to unpack said trauma with my peers back home. Like I said, this was the early 80s. Muslims weren't exactly the social capital pawns and first-pick DEI fodder they are today. At least not amongst the other 1 to 3-year-olds in my preschool classroom. Can you imagine me trying to follow pigtailed, curly Sue apple pie Allison's act telling the class about her perfect Christmas with all the gifts and the caroling and pretty lights and Santa, and then I come up and tell everyone about Eid al Adha?
We cut goats' heads off and celebrate, but sometimes the leftover dismembered carcasses scare me.
Cut to adults fetching the authorities. Cut to being Mariam in the foster care system. Not exactly the most therapeutic venting sesh. More like a recipe for yet again feeling weird and out of place and resolving to convince my Muslim family to henceforward celebrate Christmas and legally change our birthplaces to Wisconsin. But that was then. Today, displacing me from my home for celebrating Eid al Adha would be called racist and culturally insensitive, and I would have no problem shutting it down immediately. Because everyone knows that Eid al Adha is about Ibrahim alayhi salam, aka Abraham, may he be in peace. You know, prophet to almost 4 billion people globally who came through on some of God's toughest asks. Like leaving his family in the middle of the desert with no food or water so that his hungry infant son could find a well by kicking his little feet in the sand, a well that flows to this day and hydrates the billions of people that have followed in the family's footsteps. And like the time God asked him to sacrifice his son Ismail, and Ismail himself assured his dad that if God said so, then it was definitely all good, and they should get right to it. And so Ibrahim conquered the strongest instinct given to human beings, just because God asked him to, which turned out to be a really big hit with God, who then, bon appetit, swapped Ismail for a ram right at T-0. And so to commemorate, we retrace his family's journey during Hajj and make an animal sacrifice and then celebrate. Everybody knows that. That's still really weird. Isn't that weird? That's weird, right? Nope, not weird, Allison. Using animals for food is universal. Most of the meat is used to feed the poor and others around you, and when the meal on your plate's a life you've taken with your own hands, you eat it with a lot more respect and presence, and a connection to one of the greatest historical figures that ever lived. It also reminds us to trust that God's toughest requests are worth it. So, yeah, I'd much rather do it that way than mindlessly shovel microwaved spam down my throat.
You're me. Spam's all we can afford right now.
Anyway, there's lots of other stories to tell, but I currently must attend to Jasmine, who's crying in bed because Zubair left her bedtime story at a cliffhanger. And now I've got to pick it back up at the part where the teen pop sensation has farted on stage mid-concert after eating a bad pork sandwich and is fighting impending diarrhea. So till next time, thanks for listening to me ramble on about my life.
Bye, Boogies. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm so excited, Mom.
Hey, get off my channel and go finish making dinner while Mommy chases YouTube fame.